You check your phone more than you admit, scroll through old photos, rehearse conversations that never happened. You tell yourself it's just time, that healing is coming, but deep down, you're waiting for her to reach out, waiting. If for a sign that you still matter. You think if you stay quiet long enough, she'll feel it, feel your absence, regret the loss. Come back, but here's the truth you've been avoiding. If she's already moved on, your silence doesn't echo, it vanishes. And in that space you finally see it. You weren't waiting for her. You were waiting to feel like you again. This isn't about getting her back. It's about getting you back. The man beneath the ache, beneath the overthinking, beneath the silence you've been mistaking for strength. Because what hurts most isn't that she left. It's that you forgot who you were without her. In this video, we'll slow down, we'll strip away the noise and face the truths most men avoid. Not to stay broken, but to finally wake up. By the end, you won't just understand the pain, you'll understand the man it's shaping. Comment below, I don't chase what walked away. Number 1, she let go long before you did. You didn't lose her when she walked out. You lost her when she stopped fighting. You keep going back to the moment she left, like a man trying to replay the scene of a car crash, hoping he'll catch the moment it all went wrong. You replay her walking away, her silence, her coldness. But the truth, that wasn't when it ended. It ended in the quiet moments you didn't even notice. The way her eyes stopped lighting up when you entered the room. The way she stopped reaching for your hand. The way she sighed instead of speaking. She had already begun her goodbye, long before her lips said the words, and that's what stings the most, doesn't it? You felt the breakup the day she left. She felt it months ago, in the disconnection, in the hollow conversations, in the ache of trying to feel something that no longer responded. While you were still dreaming of a future together, she was already grieving you while lying beside you. And that is a different kind of death, the kind that happens slowly, without ceremony, without closure. That's why she seems fine. That's why she can smile, post, move on, because she already mourned you while you were still in the room, because she spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering when the man she loved turned into someone she couldn't reach, and when she stopped fighting, that's when you lost her. But here you are, stuck in the illusion, thinking that love is a door that slams shut. That heartbreak is loud and sudden. It's not. It's the slow corrosion of connection, the slow drying up of presence, the way someone can be physically close, but emotionally gone. You were holding on to memories. She was holding on to survival. You were reliving old laughter. She was rehearsing letting go. And now you sit in the silence she already made. Peace with, there's a brutal truth here, brother, and you need to hear it. She didn't just leave you. She outgrew the version of you that couldn't see her pain. And no, this isn't about blame. This isn't about pointing fingers or carrying shame. It's about clarity. It's about seeing the invisible decay, the kind of decay that happens when attention dies, when listening fades, when presence disappears. You weren't abandoned overnight. You were slowly released because she was dying quietly and didn't know how to scream. And here's the part that breaks you, but also makes you. You're not broken because she left. You're broken because you weren't there before she did. You weren't aware. You weren't watching. You weren't connected. And now is your chance. Not to win her back, not to beg or chase or punish yourself with guilt, but to wake up, to see the way you vanish when you're afraid, to see how easy it is to miss the slow death of love when you're focused on everything. else to see how numb you became to her quiet cries for connection, this pain you're feeling now. It's sacred. It's what happens when a man finally feels, when he finally drops the illusion and sees the truth without rage or resistance. You didn't lose her when she walked out. You lost her when she stopped hoping, when she stopped believing in the space between you. And when she stopped fighting, it wasn't because she didn't care. It was because she had nothing left to give. So now, you grieve, but not just for her, for the version of you that couldn't see her slipping away, for the man who thought love would hold itself together without effort. Let this be the cut that makes you conscious. Let this be the silence that teaches you how to listen. Because next time, if there is a next time, you won't sleepwalk through connection. You'll show up, you'll speak, you'll see. And if you do, you won't have to wonder when she let go, because you'll never leave her alone in it again. She let go long before you did. Now it's time you let go too, not of her, but of the illusion that love dies in a single day. Number 2, your silence isn't a statement. It's a mirror. Silence doesn't hurt someone who's no longer listening. You thought staying quiet would make her wonder. You thought pulling away would somehow pull her back. That your absence would echo so loudly, it would shake her into remembering what she lost. But here's the truth you don't want to sit with. She's not listening anymore. She stopped searching for signals, stopped checking for meaning in the quiet. She made peace with your silence long before you used it as a weapon. You weren't being strategic, and you were grieving. And in that grief, you convinced yourself that stillness was strength, that saying nothing would say everything, that withholding was a form of power. But brother, silence is not a message when no one's left to read it. It's not a punishment when they've already walked away. It's just a mirror. And all it reflects is the space where connection used to be. You stayed quiet, hoping she'd break. First, hoping she'd miss you, feel the ache, reach out, but she didn't. And that silence you held like a sword, it only cut you, because silence, when it's built from fear, from pride, from pain, is not wisdom. It's retreat, it's hiding, it's waiting to be seen, instead of standing to be known. You weren't communicating strength. You were communicating confusion. You were hoping she'd understand the language of your silence, but she stopped speaking that dialect a long time ago. She doesn't decode your moods anymore, doesn't trace the shape of your shadows, doesn't study the gap between your words for hidden meaning, because that job, it broke her, it wore her down, and now you're here, trying to make silence roar, trying to make emptiness echo. But silence only works when someone's still tuned in, when someone still cares enough to listen. You thought withdrawing would bring clarity, but what it brought was distance. And the deeper you sank into the quiet, the further she drifted, not out of malice, out of exhaustion. Here's the illusion most men fall into after heartbreak. They mistake silence for control. They think shutting down protects them. They think not speaking keeps their dignity intact. But all it really does is keep them alone. Not just alone without her, but alone within themselves. Because here's the Stoic truth. Silence can only be strength when it's chosen from peace, not pain. When it's grounded in presence, not pride. When it's the stillness of a man who knows himself, not the freeze of a man afraid to feel. You wanted her to hear the absence of your voice, but the only one left in that silence is you. And maybe that's what you've been running from. Your silence isn't a message to her, it's a mirror for you, and in that mirror, you see it all. The words you never said, the affection you withheld, the fear you let speak louder than your love. So now, what do? You stop waiting for her to notice the quiet. You stop hoping silence will heal what conversation never even faced. And you start listening, not to her, but to yourself. You start hearing the man inside who wanted to be seen. You start speaking again, not to get her back, but to get yourself back. Because if you stay in silence too long, you forget the sound of your own soul. So speak, even if it's to yourself, even if it's into the dark, even if no one is listening, because your voice is not a weapon, it's a bridge, and you're not here to punish her with quiet, you're here to rebuild you with truth. Let this moment be your turning point, not the end of something, but the beginning of a deeper kind of presence, not the silent absence of her, but the awakened presence of you. You thought your silence was a statement, but really it was a mirror. Now it's time to look into it and finally speak. Number 3, this isn't love. It's ego dressed as longing. This isn't love. It's ego wrapped in regret. You keep saying you still love her, that she's the one, that no one else compares, but deep down, in the quiet parts of your chest, you feel something off, because love doesn't feel like this. Love doesn't burn with panic, doesn't beg to be seen, doesn't sit in the shadows, clawing at the past, praying for one more text, one more sign, one more reason to stay addicted. What you're feeling isn't love, it's the ego. Bruised, stripped, standing naked in the ruins of what used to be. It's the part of you that can't handle being rejected. Not because she was perfect, but because she made you feel valuable, wanted, needed, like a man who mattered. And now that mirror is gone, that reflection of your worth, the way she once looked at you, touched you, needed you, it's vanished. And you're not grieving her. You're grieving the you that only existed in her eyes. That's the part most men never name. The truth we bury under phrases like, I miss her, or she was my everything. But if you get still, really still, you'll see it. You don't miss her laughter. You miss how her laughter made you feel alive. You don't miss her warmth. You miss being the reason for it. You don't miss her body. You miss the way your body felt desired in her presence. This isn't love. It's ego, wrapped in memory, drenched in longing, dressed up as devotion, but at its core, it's fear. Fear that you're not enough without her. Fear that you've lost your chance to be that man again. Fear that maybe she was the only place you felt real. But here's the thing about the ego. It doesn't want healing. It wants resolution. It wants to win, to be chosen again, to rewrite the ending. It doesn't care if she's right for you. It just wants her to want you, so it can stop hurting. But love? Love is not about being chosen. It's about choosing, with clarity, with presence, with truth. And truth says this pain you feel isn't about her, it's about you. You lost her, yes. But more than that, you lost the story of who you were when she loved you. You lost the role you played, the identity you built around her attention. And now, your ego is starving. Not for connection, but for validation. That's why you check her social media. That's why you replay old messages. That's why you fantasize about bumping into her and her regretting everything. It's not love. It's the echo of a man trying to be someone again. But if you can sit with this, if you can breathe through the ache without reaching for her name, something sacred begins. You start to feel you, not the version she wanted, not the mask you wore to keep her close, but the raw, real, unfiltered you underneath the craving. And from that place, you can start to build again, not for her, not to prove anything, but to return home to yourself. This is where Stoicism speaks softly. Let go of what you cannot control. Release the illusion of ownership. Detach from the need to be wanted. And step into the peace of simply being. You don't need to be her lover to be a man. You don't need her apology to be whole. You don't need her to see you, to see yourself, because what you're chasing is not her. It's the lost boy inside you, screaming for validation, screaming to feel enough. Hold him, see him, but don't let him drive. This isn't love. It's ego, dressed in nostalgia, longing. Yes, but not for her, for the version of you that you think only existed in her arms, but he still exists. He's here, beneath the noise, beneath the ache, waiting for you to claim him. So breathe, let her go. Not with bitterness, not with blame, but with a quiet bow to the mirror she was, because she wasn't the love of your life. She was the lesson of your ego, and now that lesson is done. Number 4, you're grieving identity, not intimacy. Letting go isn't about her. It's about releasing the story you tied yourself to. There's a moment in every breakup where the silence turns inward. The distractions fade. The texts stop coming. And you're no longer looking for her. You're looking for you, and what you find is a stranger, because the hardest part of losing her wasn't just losing the intimacy. It was losing the reflection of yourself that only existed in her presence. The roles you played, the routines you built, the way you felt needed, seen, important. You didn't just lose a woman, you lost a version of yourself, a man you liked being when you were with her, and now that she's gone, you're standing in the ruins of a former identity, grasping at fragments that no longer fit. You say you miss her, but if you're honest, what you really miss is being him. The man who felt strong when she laughed at his jokes, the man who felt grounded when she reached for his hand, the man who felt whole when her eyes saw something worth loving. You're not just mourning connection, you're mourning confirmation, you're mourning the feeling of being someone, and now there's an echo. Now there's emptiness where validation used to live, and it's terrifying because without her, you're not sure who you are, not sure if you matter, not sure if you're still that man without her belief in you. That's the quiet death no one talks about, the death of identity, the collapse of a self you didn't know you had fused to someone else. You thought you were healing from heartbreak. But what you're really healing from is identity loss. You built yourself around her like scaffolding, and when she walked, the structure crumbled, and now you're left not with longing, but with uncertainty. This is where the deeper work begins, not in trying to move on from her, but in moving on from the story that said you were only powerful when loved, only grounded when held, only worthy when chosen. But brother, that's not love. That's dependence dressed up as romance. That's ego mistaken for intimacy. That's identity outsourced to someone else's eyes. And here's the illusion you must let die. She didn't just leave. You gave her the bow, keys to your identity. And now that she's gone, you feel empty, not because she took you, but because you never built yourself without her. This is the Stoic shift, to realize you are not the man someone else sees in you. You are who you choose to be. In silence, in solitude, in struggle. You're not grieving her touch. You're grieving the self that only existed in her arms, but that self was never permanent. It was a shadow, a moment, a mirror. And now you get to build something new, not a performance, not a projection, but a presence. A man who doesn't need another's love to feel whole. A man who doesn't collapse when no one is watching. A man who finds strength, not in being desired, but in being integral. Letting go isn't about forgetting her. It's about releasing the version of you that couldn't survive without her. The man who felt only half alive unless someone else completed the image. So, breathe, stand still, feel the rawness of your own edges, and start again, not with noise, not with distraction, but with depth, with intention, with the quiet, solid truth that you were never broken, you were just borrowed. Now it's time to come back to yourself, not as someone else's version, but as your own creation, because you're not missing love. You're rebuilding identity. And in that rebuilding is the birth of a man who never has to lose himself again. Number 5, closure doesn't come from conversation. You don't need her to make peace with the ending. You just need to stop reopening it. There's a part of you still waiting for that text, that message, that final clean goodbye that wraps this whole thing up like it makes sense, a bow on the pain, a reason that explains the storm. You think if she'd just explain, just apologize, just say why, then maybe you could finally move on. Maybe the ache would settle. Maybe your mind could rest, so you wait, not for her, but for peace dressed in her voice. But peace doesn't come that way. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not a paragraph sent at 2 a.m. It's not a let's meet up coffee or a just so you know phone call. It's silence. Not the kind you throw at her out of pride, but the kind you give yourself out of mercy. It's the silence where you stop picking the scab, stop rewriting the last scene, stop asking questions that don't change the truth. She left. It ended. Not clean, not fair, not finished, but that's what endings usually are, messy, jagged, unresolved, and you can chase meaning in it forever. You can craft theories, you can assign blame, you can scroll through old messages and read them like ancient scripture trying to decode where it broke. But the truth is, what broke wasn't just the relationship. What broke was your ability to accept silence, to accept that sometimes the story ends without the villain confessing, without the hero winning, without the closure scene where everything finally click. You want her to make it okay, to tell you it mattered, to say you were good, even if it didn't last. But that's your job now, not hers. Closure doesn't come from the past. It comes from the present moment, when you stop giving your peace away to someone else's choices, when you stop needing her voice to validate your pain. You were hurt. You were real. And that's enough. You don't need her to confirm it. You don't need her to say you were worthy. Because if you keep reaching for her to seal the wound, you'll never learn how to close it yourself. You'll stay stuck in an emotional loop, waiting, hoping, aching. Not for love, but for release. And here's the stoic truth, the brutal grace of it all. You do not control what she does. You do not control what she understands or regrets or realizes. You only control what you do next, where you place your energy, where you build your life from here. So stop rehearsing conversations that never happened. Stop reliving moments you can't rewrite. Stop looking for closure in a mouth that's already gone silent, because sometimes closure isn't a door that's shut gently. It's a fire that burns the house down, and the healing begins not when the fire stops, but when you stop standing in the smoke, Let her go, not for her, not to punish, but because carrying her story keeps you out of your own. Let go of the apology that never came, the answer that never arrived, the message that never lit up your screen, because the message was never hers to send. It was always yours to write, and maybe, just maybe, the closure you've been waiting for isn't something you hear, it's something you finally accept. The ending happened, and now it's yours to end. Quietly, calmly, completely. Number 6, stillness is not weakness. It's power withheld. True power is when you stop explaining your worth, even to yourself. There's a restless voice in your chest. It tells you to move, to fix, to be seen. It whispers that silence looks like surrender. That stillness feels too much like being forgotten, so you wrestle with it. You scroll, you post, you hope she notices, you hope someone notices. You think moving on means motion, loudness, being picked again, chosen again, validated again. But what if the most powerful thing you could do was nothing, and not out of defeat? Not out of pride, but out of discipline, out of clarity, because real stillness, the kind that doesn't tremble, is a man's quiet answer to the chaos. You think you need to prove something, to her, to the world, to yourself, that you're okay, that you're wanted, that you've already won the breakup. But that hunger to be seen again, that's not strength, that's fear dressed in armor, that's your ego gasping for reassurance, hoping to outrun its own emptiness. And you've tried, haven't you? Tried the rebound, tried the online validation, tried posting like you're glowing, leveling up, unbothered, but none of it quiets the ache. Because none of it is stillness. It's noise. It's reaction. Stillness isn't what happens when you give up. It's what happens when you finally stop chasing illusions. It's the restraint to not reach, to not explain, to not fight for someone who already let go. It's the discipline to let endings end without needing to be the one who puts a period on the sentence. There's a kind of strength that looks like silence. Not because there's nothing to say, but because nothing needs to be said anymore. That's where the power is. In not texting just to feel something, in not defending your side of the story, in not scrambling to rebuild an image that was never who you truly were. It's in choosing to rebuild inwardly, quietly, without the spotlight, without the performance, without the pressure to prove you've moved on. Because you have nothing to prove, and that's the shift. That's where Stoicism lives, not in suppressing emotion, but in mastering response. In knowing the storm is there, but choosing not to be moved by it. Stillness is not a void, it's presence, it's patience, it's the space where healing takes root. And when you stop explaining your worth, even to yourself, that's when you feel it. That calm weight of being grounded, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've stopped begging for permission to matter. Let her wonder. Let the world speculate. Let the story drift where it needs to go. You're not here to narrate it anymore. You're not here to win the breakup. You're here to win yourself. Stillness is the proof, not that you've forgotten her, not that you've erased what was real, but that you're strong enough to sit with what's left and not run. That's real presence. That's real power, not in being loud, but in being whole, even in the quiet. You thought you had to make a statement, but the man who no longer needs to speak is the one who's already said everything that matters. So be still, be steady, be silent. Not because you're broken, but because you no longer need to shout what you now simply are. Number 7, you were never meant to stay broken. You don't need her back. You need you back. There's a moment, quiet and crushing, when you start to believe that this pain might be permanent, that this version of you, the wounded, half-alive, hollowed-out man, is just who you are now, that maybe you'll always carry this weight, always miss her, always feel like something vital was carved out of you and never returned. You begin to wear your sadness like skin. You stop trying to fix it. You start identifying with it. This is just me now, you think. But no, it's not. You were never meant to stay broken. Pain doesn't define you. It reveals you. It tears down the fragile image, the illusions, the masks, and what's left. That's who you really are. Not the man pretending everything is okay, but the man standing in the rubble, learning to rebuild. Heartbreak didn't destroy you, it uncovered you, but you have to stop romanticizing the wound. You have to stop living in the story of being the man who was left, the man who got it wrong, the man who couldn't hold on. Because here's the pattern men fall into after love shatters. They become caretakers of their own suffering. They tend to it like a ritual. They cling to the grief as if it's all that's left of the relationship, as if letting go of the pain means letting go of her. But grief is not loyalty. And staying broken is not love. You don't prove the depth of what you felt by staying in the dark. You prove it by rising from it. Yes, she mattered. Yes, it was real. Yes, the pain carved deep. But you weren't meant to stay there. Stuck in the memory, trapped in the echo, frozen in the moment where it all fell apart. This pain, it's not the end. It's the beginning of the man who now walks without leaning on someone else, the man who knows his worth without needing it reflected, the man who rebuilds not to impress, not to replace, but to remember who he is. This isn't about her anymore. It never really was. She was a chapter, maybe a meaningful one, maybe a beautiful one, but still, just a chapter. You are the story, and it's time to stop writing your identity in the ink of what hurt you. You've mourned enough. You've bled long enough. You've sat in the ruins long enough. Now, you rise, not to forget, not to erase, but to return to you, the man who existed before her, the man who lost himself in love, and now must find himself in the aftermath. This is the Stoic shift, the reclaiming, the realization that no one is coming to rescue you, not her, not a new love, not time. It's you. You are the rescue. You are the return. You are the one who must choose to stand up and stop telling the story of being broken, because strength, real strength, isn't in how long you can sit in pain. It's in how gracefully you can let it go. You don't need her back. You need you back. So take the pain, take the memories, take the guilt, the hope, the questions, and use them to build, because this isn't who you are. This is the fire that forges who you're about to become. And that man, he doesn't chase closure. He doesn't beg to be seen. He doesn't stay broken just to feel loyal. He rises silently, surely, powerfully, because he knows the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to stay broken. You were meant to wake up. You've waited long enough for the message, the closure, the reason. You've stood at the edge of memory hoping pain would give you purpose, but pain was never meant to define you, only to refine you. And now, you see it? She already let go. Not when she walked away, but when the connection faded and you ignored the signs. The silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. It was the universe removing what you kept trying to hold so you could finally hold yourself. You're not who you were when she left. You're calmer now, clearer, not because the hurt is gone, but because you stopped letting it be your home. You stopped building a life around absence. Now, you stand differently, not because you got what you wanted, but because you learned what you needed. And from this moment forward, you no longer carry anyone who let go of you. You no longer shrink to fit memories. You no longer chase healing. In hands that cause the wound, you walk forward, not fast, not loud, but steady, because peace doesn't need to be proven, it just needs to be chosen. So say it softly, to yourself, to your past, to the boy inside you still waiting. To be seen, I am not who I used to be. And if you feel that in your chest, if you're ready to walk away, not to make noise, but to protect your peace, then subscribe. Because silence isn't weakness. Stillness isn't surrender. And healing is the most powerful thing a man can do quietly. Comment below, I am not who I used to be. Subscribe if you're done explaining your worth and ready to embody it.